Imagine for a moment that the history we've been told about the world's great civilizations was incomplete. That, long before the imposing Gothic cathedrals of Europe or the vibrant city-states of Mesoamerica, a colossal metropolis existed in the heart of North America, an urban center that rivaled in size and complexity with the largest cities of the Old World of its time. We are not talking about distant legends or forgotten myths, but about a palpable archaeological reality. Cahokia, located on the fertile banks of the majestic Mississippi River, in what is now southwestern Illinois, this city was a beacon of innovation, commerce, and power, a testament to the ingenuity and organization of indigenous civilizations that flourished long before the arrival of Christopher Columbus. Think of medieval London, with its bustling streets and growing population, or 12th century Paris with its universities and markets. Now, project that image onto the American continent, about 500 years earlier. Cahokia was not just a village, it was a city with a population that, at its peak, surpassed that of many contemporary European capitals. It was a pulsating center of life, where tens of thousands of people lived, worked, worshipped, and built monumental structures that still baffle us today. Its earthen mounds, some larger than the Egyptian pyramids in volume, are a silent legacy of a civilization that dominated the landscape and life of a vast region. But how did such a grand city, so advanced in its social organization, engineering, and culture, simply disappear? What led to the collapse of a civilization that, for centuries, prospered and exerted influence over a vast network of communities? This is the core of Cahokia's mystery, a question that intrigues archaeologists, historians, and history enthusiasts to this day. What really happened to its inhabitants? Were they victims of wars, diseases, environmental disasters, or a complex combination of factors? With each new archaeological discovery, more layers of this fascinating story are revealed, but the central enigma persists, inviting us to delve into the depths of a past that still holds many secrets. Cahokia's story is a powerful reminder that pre-Columbian America was not an empty continent or inhabited only by small nomadic tribes. It was a melting pot of complex cultures, with sophisticated cities, trade networks, and social systems. Cahokia's long-standing oblivion is, in itself, part of the mystery, a reflection of how historical narratives have been shaped. Now, it's time to unearth this truth and give Cahokia the prominent place it deserves in world history. To understand Cahokia's rise, it is crucial to understand its location. The city did not emerge by chance. It was strategically positioned in the American bottom, a vast and fertile alluvial plain stretching about 100 miles, 160 kilometers, along the Mississippi River, in what is now southwestern Illinois. This region was a true paradise of natural resources, an incredibly rich and diverse ecosystem, shaped by the confluence of three of North America's largest rivers, the Mississippi, the Missouri, and the Illinois. The fertility of the soil, constantly renewed by seasonal Mississippi floods, was unparalleled, making it ideal for intensive agriculture. The abundance of water not only irrigated crops but also provided an inexhaustible source of fish, shellfish, and waterfowl. The surrounding forests offered abundant game, deer, bears, turkeys, as well as timber for construction, wild fruits, nuts, and medicinal plants. This natural wealth was the magnet that attracted the first settlers and later allowed the flourishing of a complex and densely populated society. In addition to food resources, Cahokia's location was a strategic node for transportation and trade. The Mississippi, Missouri, and Illinois rivers formed a vast network of water highways that connected the American bottom to distant regions. From the Great Lakes to the north to the Gulf of Mexico to the south, and from the Rocky Mountains to the west to the Appalachians to the east. This river network facilitated the exchange of goods, ideas, and people, transforming Cahokia into a continental commercial and cultural center. The ability to access and control these trade routes was a determining factor in the city's power and wealth. Cahokia's story began modestly, not as a metropolis, but as a series of small settlements and hunter-gatherer camps that gradually became more sedentary. Around 600 CE, groups of people who would come to be known as the Mississippian culture began to migrate to the American bottom, drawn by the promise of fertile lands and abundant resources. These peoples already possessed a rudimentary knowledge of agriculture, but it was the domestication and intensive cultivation of maize that truly transformed their subsistence and fueled population growth. Maize was not just another crop. It was a gift from the gods, a highly productive staple food that could be stored for long periods. Its ability to generate large food surpluses was a game changer. It allowed communities to grow in size and density, and, crucially, freed part of the population from the need to dedicate all their time to direct food foraging. This meant that some individuals could specialize in other activities: craftsmanship, construction, religious or political leadership, and even warfare. Initially, settlements were small villages, with houses built of wood and thatch wattle and daub, organized around common spaces. Social organization was likely more egalitarian. with leaders emerging based on skills and charisma, but without a rigid hierarchy. However, the growing population and the need to manage agricultural production, store food, and defend settlements from rival groups gradually led to the emergence of a more complex social structure. Religion and rituals, which were already important for social cohesion and explaining the natural world, began to become institutionalized with the construction of small earthen platforms for ceremonies and burials. These early mounds were modest, but they represented the embryo of the monumentality that would come to define Cahokia. The period between 800 and 1050 CE was a time of accelerated transformation for Cahokia. What were once several small, dispersed villages in the American bottom began to consolidate into a larger, more cohesive center. The population grew exponentially, not only through births but also through migration of people from neighboring regions. Attracted by the prosperity and opportunities Cahokia offered, this period marked the beginning of the construction of the first large earthen mounds, which were not just piles of dirt, but carefully planned and constructed structures, often for ceremonial, funerary purposes, or as bases for leaders, residences, and temples. The transition from a tribal society to a chiefdom, and eventually to a complex state, was well underway. Leadership began to concentrate in charismatic and powerful figures, who likely combined political, religious, and military authority. The ability to organize and mobilize a significant workforce for large-scale construction projects, such as the mounds, is a direct testament to the growing authority of these leaders and the complexity of social organization. It is estimated that the construction of a single mound required the labor of hundreds, if not thousands, of people for years, moving millions of baskets of earth. At this stage of growth, Cahokia was already a vibrant center, though it had not yet reached its peak. The seeds of a metropolis were firmly planted. Agricultural innovation, strategic location, and growing social organization created the perfect conditions for an explosion of culture, engineering, and power that would transform the landscape and history of the region forever. The vision of a monumental city, with its mounds rising above the plain, began to take shape, foreshadowing the grandeur Cahokia would achieve at its zenith. The promise of an unprecedented civilization in North America was about to materialize. Between 1050 and 1200 CE, Cahokia reached its zenith, transforming into one of the largest and most influential cities in pre-Columbian North America. This period was marked by explosive demographic growth and an unprecedented consolidation of political, economic, and religious power. It is estimated that, at its peak, the population of Cahokia and its nearby satellite settlements reached an impressive 20,000 to 40,000 inhabitants, a number that rivaled the largest cities of medieval Europe, such as London or Paris of the same era. This population density in a single urban center was unprecedented in North America and demonstrated extraordinary organizational and food sustenance capabilities. The city was not only large in terms of people but also in its physical extent. Cahokia spread over an area of approximately 15 to 20 square kilometers, 6 to 8 square miles, with a well-defined civic ceremonial center and a vast network of residential neighborhoods, agricultural areas, and subsidiary settlements that formed a kind of metropolitan area. The complexity of this urban network required sophisticated planning and administration, far beyond what would be expected from a society without writing or large centralized empires like those of Mesoamerica. The ability to coordinate the lives of so many people, with different functions and needs, is a testament to the sophistication of Cahokia's social and political structure. What was most impressive about Cahokia, and still is, are its earthen mounds. More than 120 mounds of various sizes and shapes were built in the Cahokia metropolitan area, with about 80 of them concentrated in the city center. These were not natural hills, but monumental structures, meticulously designed and constructed by thousands of laborers over decades, if not centuries. The largest and most iconic of these is Monk's Mound, a four-terraced earthen pyramid that dominates the landscape, standing about 100 feet, 30 meters high, 951 feet, 291 meters long, and 774 feet, 236 meters wide at its base. It is larger in volume than the Great Pyramid of Giza. Its construction required the movement of approximately 22 million cubic feet, 622,000 cubic meters, of earth, transported in baskets by workers, an engineering feat that rivals any other ancient civilization. Monk's Mound was not just an impressive structure, it was the political and spiritual heart of Cahokia. At its summit, there likely stood a large temple, or the residence of the city's principal leader, offering a panoramic view of the entire metropolis and the surrounding agricultural fields. The other mounds had varied functions. Some were platforms for smaller temples, homes of clan leaders, or sites for public assemblies and rituals. Others were burial mounds, such as the famous Mound 72, which revealed elaborate burials of high-status individuals, accompanied by human sacrifices and a vast array of precious artifacts, indicating a stratified society and complex rituals related to death and power. The arrangement of the mounds was not random. They formed a complex layout that reflected a deep understanding of astronomy and cosmology. Many mounds were aligned with cardinal directions or with important solar and lunar events, such as solstices and equinoxes. This suggests that Cahokia's landscape was, in itself, a map of the universe, a sacred space where sky and earth met and where rituals could harmonize the community with cosmic forces. Cahokia's urban organization was remarkable. The city center was dominated by a vast central plaza, about 50 acres, 20 hectares in size, stretching east of Monk's Mound. This plaza was not just an empty space. It was the stage for large public gatherings, ceremonies, games, and markets. Wide, well-planned streets connected the main mounds and neighborhoods, facilitating the movement of people and goods. One of the most intriguing aspects of Cahokia's organization is the woodhenge, a series of timber post circles that functioned as solar calendars. Four woodhenges have been identified at Cahokia, the most famous being Woodhenge 3. These circles were composed of large cedar posts, precisely aligned to mark the sunrises on the summer and winter solstices, and the spring and autumn equinoxes. The woodhenge demonstrated an advanced knowledge of astronomy and was crucial for determining planting and harvesting times and the performance of religious festivals. It was a cosmic clock that regulated the city's life. The city was also surrounded by a defensive palisade, a wooden wall about 2 miles 2 kilometers long, with guard towers built and rebuilt several times. This massive structure, which required thousands of timber logs, suggests the existence of tensions and conflicts with external groups, or perhaps the need to protect the city center from incursions. The presence of the palisade is a reminder that, despite its grandeur, Cahokia was not immune to threats from the outside world. Life in Cahokia was diverse and dynamic. The economy's foundation was intensive agriculture, with maize being the primary crop, supplemented by beans, squash, sunflowers, and other plants. Cultivated fields stretched across the American bottom, feeding the vast population. Advanced agricultural techniques, such as terracing and flood management, were likely employed to maximize production. Beyond agriculture, Cahokia was a center of craftsmanship and trade. Archaeologists have found evidence of specialized workshops where artisans produced pottery, stone tools, shell and copper jewelry, and textiles. These goods were traded locally and also exported to a vast trade network that extended across much of eastern North America. Marine shells from the Gulf of Mexico, copper from the Great Lakes, mica from the Appalachians, and obsidian from the Rocky Mountains have been found at Cahokia, demonstrating the extent of its commercial connections. Cahokia functioned as an economic hub, controlling and facilitating the flow of goods and information. The diet of the Cahokians was varied, including maize, beans, squash, wild fruits, nuts, fish from the Mississippi River, and game, such as deer and birds. The health of the population, however, was a challenge. High population density and reliance on a single crop maize made the city vulnerable to diseases and malnutrition in times of scarcity. Cahokia's society was clearly stratified, with an elite of leaders and priests at the top, a class of artisans and warriors, and a base of farmers and laborers. The burials in Mound 72, with their rich grave goods and human sacrifices, are compelling evidence of this social hierarchy. The principal leader, or great son, as known in some later Mississippian cultures, likely exercised theocratic power, combining political and religious authority. Religion permeated all aspects of life in Cahokia. The mounds were sacred sites, and rituals were essential for maintaining cosmic order, ensuring good harvests, and honoring ancestors and deities. The Southeastern Ceremonial Complex, SECC, a set of shared symbols and religious practices among many Mississippian cultures, was prominent in symbols such as the weeping eye, the solar cross, and the feathered serpent were common in artifacts, reflecting a rich and complex cosmology. Public festivals and ceremonies, often linked to agricultural and astronomical cycles, united the community and reinforced the authority of the leaders. Women played crucial roles in Cahokian society, both in agriculture, maize cultivation, and in domestic and social life. Although formal leadership appears to have been predominantly male, female influence in family organization, pottery production, and the transmission of cultural knowledge was undeniable. Family structure was likely based on clans, with lineages and kinship playing an important role in social and political organization. At its peak, Cahokia was more than a city. It was a center of regional power, a magnet for peoples from across the Mississippi Basin. Its influence extended for hundreds of miles, and its model of urban and social organization was imitated by other Mississippian communities. It was a testament to the human capacity to build and sustain a complex and vibrant civilization. Even without the technologies we associate with other great civilizations of the world, At the height of its power, Cahokia was not an isolated island. It was the epicenter of a vast and complex network of interactions that extended across much of eastern North America. Its influence was not limited to the American bottom but radiated for hundreds of miles in all directions, shaping the culture, economy, and politics of countless Mississippian communities and other neighboring cultures. This network of connections was multifaceted, involving trade, political alliances, cultural exchange, and, occasionally, conflicts. Cahokia functioned as a continental commercial hub. Its strategic location at the confluence of major rivers facilitated the transportation of goods over long distances. The city imported a wide range of raw materials and exotic products that were not available locally, and exported its own manufactured goods and agricultural surpluses. Marine shells from the Gulf of Mexico used for jewelry, beads, and ceremonial objects. Copper from the Great Lakes fashioned into plates and ornaments. Mica from the Appalachian Mountains used in rituals and as decorative material, obsidian and chert from more distant regions for prestige tools and weapons, and even salt from sources in Missouri and Arkansas. The presence of these exotic materials in Cahokia, especially in elite funerary contexts, underscores the city's status and wealth, as well as its leaders' ability to control and mobilize resources from vast areas. Cahokia likely exported its surplus maize, high-quality pottery, specialized stone tools such as chert, hose, and perhaps even prestige artisanal products, such as carved wooden objects or textiles. Cahokia's advanced agricultural technology and its ability to produce large food surpluses made it a valuable trading partner for communities that lacked the same productivity. Cahokia's influence extended beyond material trade. The city was a center of cultural and religious innovation. The Southeastern Ceremonial Complex (SECC), a set of symbols, iconography, and ritual practices, flourished in Cahokia and spread to other Mississippian communities. Symbols such as the weeping eye, the solar cross, the feathered serpent, the birdman warrior, and the hand-and-eye motif were common in artifacts found at Cahokia and at distant sites, indicating a shared cosmology and belief system. Platform mound architecture, though not exclusive to Cahokia, was refined and monumentalized there, serving as a model for other regional centers. Cahokia's hierarchical social organization and ritual practices may also have been emulated by communities seeking to replicate the metropolis's power and prestige. The city functioned as a pilgrimage center, attracting people from afar to participate in grand festivals and ceremonies. Cahokia's vast network of interactions included political alliances with neighboring and distant communities. The presence of smaller satellite settlements, organized around Cahokia, suggests a regional hierarchy, where Cahokia was the mother city or the center of a complex political system. These smaller settlements may have paid tribute, provided labor for construction projects, or participated in joint defense networks. Diplomacy and negotiation were likely important tools for maintaining peace and ensuring the flow of goods and information. However, Cahokia's influence was not purely benign. The city's military power, evidenced by the defensive palisade and weapon finds, suggests that force was also a component of its hegemony. Around 1200 CE, after centuries of growth and prosperity, Cahokia began to show the first signs of decline. It was not a sudden collapse, but a gradual, multifaceted process, driven by a combination of internal and external factors that, together, undermined the metropolis's stability and sustainability. Cahokia's reliance on its fertile natural environment was both its strength and its vulnerability. The construction of over 120 mounds and the defensive palisade required a colossal amount of timber. It is estimated that the palisade, which was rebuilt several times, consumed 15,000 to 20,000 logs with each reconstruction. This led to extensive deforestation in the American bottom and surrounding areas. The removal of forest cover may have caused soil erosion, degradation of water quality, and a decrease in game, directly impacting the natural resources that sustained the city. Intensive and continuous agriculture, though productive, may have depleted soil nutrients over time, decreasing crop productivity and requiring more land to feed the population. Paleoclimate studies suggest that the period between 1150 and 1350 CE was marked by significant climatic fluctuations, including the medieval warm period followed by a cooling period, while Cahokia's early period benefited from a warmer and wetter climate. Later decades may have seen prolonged droughts or more severe and unpredictable floods. Reliance on maize made the city particularly vulnerable to these climatic variations. A series of bad harvests due to droughts or floods would have been devastating for such a large, maize-dependent population. Famine and malnutrition would have become chronic problems, weakening the population and making it more susceptible to disease. Cahokia's grandeur and wealth made it a potential target. The construction of the defensive palisade, which was erected and reinforced in several phases, is clear evidence that the city faced external threats. As resources became scarcer in the region, competition among groups may have increased. Cahokia, with its wealth and fertile lands, would have been an attractive target. Incursions by rival groups could have destabilized trade routes, stolen crops, and forced the population to seek refuge within the palisade, disrupting normal life and draining resources for defense. The need to maintain a constant military force and rebuild the palisade would have been a heavy burden. As environmental or social conditions in other regions deteriorated, there may have been increased migratory pressure on Cahokia, both from people seeking refuge and from groups who saw the city as a resource to be exploited. A city as large and complex as Cahokia was inherently vulnerable to internal tensions. High population density, combined with rudimentary sanitation and a potentially deficient diet if maize was not adequately supplemented, created an environment conducive to the spread of infectious diseases, epidemics of smallpox, measles, or other diseases even before European contact. Some endemic diseases could have been devastating, could have decimated parts of the population, especially laborers and the young, weakening the city's ability to sustain itself. Cahokia's stratified society, with a powerful elite and a large base of laborers, may have generated discontent. If leaders could no longer guarantee prosperity, security, or cosmic order, for example, if crops repeatedly failed, their legitimacy could be questioned. This could lead to internal revolts, fragmentation of power, or the migration of discontented groups to other regions. The Dark Pact mentioned in the original script, though legendary, may be a metaphor for corruption or power struggles within the elite, which could have contributed to disunity. Religion was a central pillar of Cahokian society. If rituals and beliefs could no longer explain or mitigate disasters, famine, disease, war, faith in the religious system and the authority of priests could have entered a crisis. This could lead to a loss of social cohesion and a search for new beliefs or leaders. The combination of these factors, environmental, external, and internal, began to create an environment of increasing instability for Cahokia around the 13th century. The metropolis, which once seemed invincible, began to show its vulnerabilities, setting the stage for one of the greatest mysteries in North American archaeology, its eventual abandonment. After centuries of flourishing and dominance, the 14th century marked the beginning of a sharp decline for Cahokia. The signs, which were once subtle cracks in the foundation, became more evident and systemic. The population began to dwindle, large constructions ceased, and the maintenance of existing structures, such as the imposing palisade, became irregular. The once vibrant metropolis began to empty. Its streets and plazas, once full of life, grew quieter. This was not a single, catastrophic event, but a prolonged process of disintegration, lasting several decades, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions. Archaeology offers us valuable clues about this period. There is evidence that the defensive palisade, which had been rebuilt several times at its peak, was abandoned or no longer maintained with the same rigor. The production of pottery and other specialized artifacts decreased, suggesting a reduction in artisanal and commercial activity. The satellite settlements that once orbited Cahokia also show signs of depopulation or a drastic reduction in their inhabitants. The long-distance trade network, which had been so vital to Cahokia's prosperity, appears to have fragmented, cutting off the flow of exotic goods and information. What truly caused Cahokia's abandonment is one of the greatest mysteries in North American archaeology. There is no single simple answer, but rather a complex interaction of factors that, together, created a perfect storm of challenges that the Cahokian civilization could not overcome. The most widely accepted theories today point to a combination of environmental pressures, social and external conflicts, and perhaps even ideological crises. Cahokia's reliance on its fertile natural environment was both its strength and its vulnerability. Extensive deforestation for the construction of mounds, houses, and the palisade, as well as for fuel, had severe consequences. The removal of forest cover led to soil erosion, especially on the slopes of the mounds, and the silting of rivers and streams. This may have affected water quality and the availability of resources such as timber and game. Soil degradation from intensive agriculture may also have decreased crop productivity over time, requiring more effort to produce less food. Studies of ice cores and tree rings indicate that the period between 1200 and 1400 CE was marked by significant climatic fluctuations. After a period of relatively warm and wet climate that favored Cahokia's growth, the region may have experienced prolonged droughts or, alternatively, more severe and unpredictable floods. A series of years with poor harvests due to droughts or floods would have been devastating for such a large, maize-dependent population. Famine and malnutrition would have become chronic problems, weakening the population and making it more susceptible to disease. Cahokia's grandeur and wealth made it a potential target. The construction of the defensive palisade, which was erected and reinforced in several phases, is clear evidence that the city faced external threats. During the period of decline, these threats may have intensified. As resources became scarcer in the region, competition among groups may have increased. Cahokia, with its wealth and fertile lands, would have been an attractive target. Incursions by rival groups could have destabilized trade routes, stolen crops, and forced the population to seek refuge within the palisade, disrupting normal life and draining resources for defense. The need to maintain a constant military force and rebuild the palisade would have been a heavy burden. Cahokia's influence over neighboring communities may have diminished. As the metropolis weakened, satellite settlements may have sought autonomy or aligned with other emerging power centers, fragmenting the regional network that once sustained Cahokia. A city as large and hierarchical as Cahokia was inherently vulnerable to internal tensions. High population density, combined with rudimentary sanitation and a potentially deficient diet if maize was not adequately supplemented, created an environment conducive to the spread of infectious diseases. Epidemics of smallpox, measles, or other diseases even before European contact. Some endemic diseases could have been devastating, could have decimated parts of the population, especially laborers and the young, weakening the city's ability to sustain itself. Cahokia's stratified society, with a powerful elite and a large base of laborers, may have generated discontent. If leaders could no longer guarantee prosperity, security, or cosmic order, for example. If crops repeatedly failed, their legitimacy could be questioned. This could lead to internal revolts, fragmentation of power, or the migration of discontented groups to other regions. The Dark Pact mentioned in the original script, though legendary, may be a metaphor for corruption or power struggles within the elite, which could have contributed to disunity. Religion was a central pillar of Cahokian society. If rituals and beliefs could no longer explain or mitigate disasters, famine, disease, war, faith in the religious system and the authority of priests could have entered a crisis. This could lead to a loss of social cohesion and a search for new beliefs or leaders. By around 1400 CE, Cahokia was almost completely abandoned. There was no single, dramatic event that marked its end, but rather a gradual exodus. People did not flee a sudden catastrophe, but rather dispersed over decades, seeking better living conditions elsewhere. Cahokia's inhabitants likely migrated to other regions, seeking more fertile lands, fewer conflicts, or new opportunities. Some may have joined other Mississippian communities or neighboring tribal groups, taking with them part of their culture and knowledge. Others may have formed new, smaller settlements, far from the old metropolis. It is probable that the remnants of the Cahokian population were absorbed by other tribes and cultures that continued to thrive in the region or in adjacent areas. Their descendants may have become part of groups such as the Osage, Quapo, Omaha, Ponca, Kansa, and perhaps even the Alit, who inhabited the region when the first Europeans arrived centuries later. The mystery of Cahokia's collapse is, in many respects, a microcosm of the challenges faced by many ancient civilizations. Overpopulation, environmental degradation, climate change, and social tensions are recurring themes in human history. Cahokia reminds us that even the most advanced and powerful societies are vulnerable to a combination of factors that can, eventually, lead to their decline and disappearance. The city was not destroyed by a single enemy, but rather dismantled by a series of pressures that, over time, made life in the metropolis unsustainable. The silence that followed its abandonment is a melancholic testament to its lost grandeur. After its abandonment around 1400 CE, Cahokia fell into a silence that would last for centuries. The forest and vegetation gradually reclaimed the mounds, covering the ruins of the once grand metropolis. Although the indigenous peoples who continued to inhabit the region had their own memories and legends about the mounds of the ancients. To the outside world, the existence of such a complex and monumental city was largely unknown or underestimated. When the first European explorers and settlers arrived in the American bottom in the 17th and 18th centuries, they encountered the artificial hills, but often misinterpreted them as natural formations or as burial sites of less sophisticated indigenous peoples. The magnitude and complexity of what lay beneath their feet were misunderstood. Monk's Mound, for example, was used by Trappist monks in the early 19th century as the base for a farm, which earned it its current name, but without full awareness of its true origin and significance. It was only in the 19th century, with the advent of archaeology as a scientific discipline, that Cahokia's true nature began to be unveiled. Explorers and antiquarians like Henry Brackenridge and Caleb Atwater were among the first to recognize the artificiality and scale of the mounds, suggesting they were the work of an ancient and advanced civilization. However, their theories were often marginalized or attributed to lost or mysterious peoples, rather than acknowledging continuity with existing indigenous cultures. The real work of uncovering Cahokia began in the 20th century, with systematic excavations that revealed the city's complexity. Archaeologists such as Warren K. Moorhead, Melvin Fowler, and later, George R. Milner and Timothy Pocatat led teams that, through decades of research, mapped the city's extent, excavated mounds and residential areas, and recovered millions of artifacts. Each excavation brought new revelations. The excavations revealed the intricate network of streets, plazas, and neighborhoods, confirming that Cahokia was a planned city, not a random cluster of dwellings. The discovery of the woodhenges, the timber solar calendars, demonstrated impressive astronomical knowledge and technological sophistication. Thousands of artifacts, pottery, stone tools, food remains, shell and copper jewelry painted a vivid picture of the daily lives of the Cahokians. They showed us what they ate, how they worked, how they dressed, and how they adorned themselves. The analysis of human remains provided insights into diet, health, diseases, and even the geographical origin of some inhabitants, revealing the population's diversity. The discovery of Mound 72 was a watershed moment, the finding of a high-status leader's burial on a bed of 20,000 shell beads, accompanied by secondary burials and human sacrifices, including young women and a group of headless and handless men, provided compelling evidence of a hierarchical society and complex, sometimes brutal, rituals. This challenged the simplistic view that North American indigenous societies were always egalitarian. The presence of exotic materials from distant regions confirmed Cahokia's vast trade network, showing that the city was a center of continental exchange. These discoveries radically transformed our understanding of pre-Columbian North American history, proving that complex urban civilizations flourished long before European contact. In 1982, Cahokia Mound State Historic Site was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site, in recognition of its outstanding universal cultural and historical importance. This designation is a testament to Cahokia's grandeur and the need to protect and preserve its ruins for future generations. Cahokia's preservation faces ongoing challenges, including natural erosion, urban development in surrounding areas, and the need for funding for research and maintenance. However, World Heritage status helps ensure that conservation efforts are prioritized and that the site is accessible for research and public education. The on-site visitor center offers exhibits, models, and detailed information, allowing visitors from around the world to learn about this fascinating civilization. Cahokia's story is not just a relic of the past. It resonates deeply with contemporary indigenous communities in North America. For many Native nations, Cahokia is a vital link to their ancestors, a reminder of the rich cultural heritage, ingenuity, and resilience of their peoples. The rediscovery and recognition of Cahokia help to counter historical narratives that often minimize or ignore the achievements of indigenous civilizations. It reaffirms the complexity, sophistication, and depth of Native American history. Many tribes, such as the Osage, Quapaw, Omaha, Ponca, Kanza, and Illinois, view Cahokia as part of their ancestral heritage, a place where their ancestors lived, built, and worshipped. The site serves as a place of pilgrimage and spiritual connection. Cahokia's legacy inspires indigenous communities to preserve their own histories, languages, and cultural identities. It also serves as a powerful educational tool to teach new generations about the greatness of their past. Cahokia's story is a powerful reminder of the resilience and innovation of indigenous civilizations. By exploring the secrets of this forgotten metropolis, we not only learn about the past, but also about the impact these civilizations had on shaping the world we know today. It forces us to reevaluate the history of the American continent and to recognize the diversity and depth of its pre-Columbian cultures. Furthermore, Cahokia's fall offers valuable lessons for the present. The challenges the city faced, environmental degradation, climate change, population pressures, and social conflicts are themes that still resonate in our contemporary world. Cahokia's story reminds us of the fragility of civilizations and the importance of sustainable resource management, social cohesion, and adaptability in the face of adversity. Are you ready to continue discovering the mysteries of Cahokia and marvel at the richness of pre-Columbian history? The journey doesn't end in the ruins. It continues in our understanding of the past and how it shapes our present and future. Cahokia, the metropolis of earth and spirit, may have been abandoned, but its voice now echoes louder than ever, inviting us to listen and learn.